Months had passed since Jasper and Steven had got together with the world seemingly at peace. Steven was now rarely going to the Earth but rather was choosing to spend more time on the moon base with Jasper and Blue, who were teaching him more about his gem. Jasper, Amethyst, Blue and her Pearl were all sitting on the floor on the viewing deck looking at Steven trying to do a new move he learned. "Hey Steven, now focus on your gem. Look inside and try let go of your physical form," Jasper said encouragingly, smiling at Steven. He closed his eyes and focused on his gem as it began to glow, slowly glowing, but then the sound of a loud alarm stopped him from focusing. "Warning, warning, proximity alert, warning, warning, proximity alert." Everyone stood up at attention with the gem's own patrol immediately rushing to Blue's side. "My diamond, they're coming." Blue looked at her gem with an icy glare. "I thought we made it clear to them that this is not their territory." Steven looked at Blue and saw the cold look on her face as he turned to Jasper. She was fuming, barely holding it together. Amethyst finally broke the silence. "Can someone please explain what's going on? Me and Steven are standing here like statues. Can you tell us what's going on?" Jasper looked at Blue and she nodded her head in approval. "Steven, what I'm about to tell you is something that you probably didn't know, but..." She looked at the Earth and back at him. "Why do you think the gems have weapons?" Steven seems a bit caught off guard by the question. "Aren't they to help you fight stuff on planets if you have problems?" Jasper walked over to him and placed her hand on his shoulder. "There is a reason why gems serve the diamonds even if some of us don't want to," she said as she glanced at Blue before turning back to Steven. The alarm was still blaring loud in the background and Jasper looked at Steven and then back to the alarms. "I'll explain later, but right now we have got to go. It's time to show me all your hard work, Steven." She kissed him on the forehead as her armored clothing glowed out of her gem and wrapped around her. Everyone started preparing themselves, all armored and ready to go. The gems outside the moon base had gone covert to avoid being discovered. "My diamond," one of her gems said. Everyone went quiet as they silently walked towards the outer doors till a comm transmission came in from one of the gem patrols outside. "My diamond, there is a gem out here." "I think it's..." The line went silent as screams started coming from outside. Steven without hesitation rushed outside onto the moon's surface, not even bothering with breathing as Jasper had taught him how to not breathe. What he saw shook him to his core. An amethyst gem with others beaten beside it next to a looming figure with a devilish smile. "Oh, you must be Steven Quartz." He could feel an intense aura coming from this gem. He looked back and thought that the others must not be seen, signaling for them to stay back by a couple of hand signs behind his back. He looked back at the gem, which had a scar over its right eye, standing as tall as Jasper with a tail wrapped around one of the amethyst and one being lifted up by the throat in one of her arms. "You seem to know who I am. So who are you?" he asked. She looked at him with a happy smirk. "Hasn't your girlfriend playing house told you yet?" "I believe her name was. Do you remember her name?" Steven heard footsteps coming from his right and left side. "I think it was Jasper, wasn't it?" as another gem stepped out from the right side with a gem on her chest just like the first one. "We've had some run-ins with her before, but she always managed to escape," as the third gem smiled, walking out of the shadows with a devious pose bearing the same features as the other two gems. "The diamonds spoke good things about you back on homeworld. I heard that your mom shattered Pink Diamond." As the leader spoke, "Drop them and we can talk," Steven commanded. The gem with the scar on her right eye laughed mockingly. "Better watch out everybody, we have a hero on our hands." The gem was smiling and the others surrounding Steven walked around him. "He is a special one, isn't he?" the purple and white gem said from the left. "Looks like he is a part gem." "Actually no," the bronze and white gem put its hand out in front. "Amber, we need this one." The gem standing holding the two amethysts just laughed. "Really, Oracle, what do we need this semi-organic for? He is barely a gem." Oracle just stared at Amber, unfazed and unbreaking, walking over to whisper something in her ear. "He is more than a gem, Amber laughed harder. This chump. Strix was still assessing Steven, but when she saw Amber laughing hysterically, she walked over to silently ask what's going. Oracle spoke quietly with a serious tone that Steven quartz. She struggled to try to let out the words. Well, spill it. You told me he is more, so what is it? Amber asked, pointing at Steven, who was growing more confused on the sidelines. I can sense the energy of a diamond. Amber immediately stopped laughing and switched to a nervous chuckle. What do you mean, a diamond? Strix was still keeping quiet with a more intense assessment of Steven. I just scanned him. He is nothing but a gem. I can only see his gem, she added. Oracle looked at him. No, Strix, I can sense power, remember, and something is telling me he is a diamond. The other gems still hiding out couldn't hear this, but Blue's capabilities were way more capable, and she had been relaying the entire conversation till they got to the part where they said he was a diamond. She almost blurted it out but played it off as a mistake and stopped telling everyone what was going. Blue peered out the corner of one of the viewing windows looking at Steven. Rose shattered pink. How could they think that he is a diamond? She probably just detected me and got confused. I knew I should have never come here. What would yellow think? What would white think? Her pearl noticed the look on her face. Are you alright, my diamond? Blue didn't respond, continuing to look out at Steven and the other gems. I knew we had deserters and more dangers in the world, but where are they from? Outside. Amber choked and squeezed the two amethysts till they puffed into smoke and their gems fell to the ground. She was now more serious after she had been given the rundown by Strix and Oracle. Remember, Amber, he might be stronger than us, so be careful and don't let your guard down. Oracle and Strix's words of warning were ringing in her head as she slowly picked up the two fallen gems and looked at Steven with a sick glare. Smiling slowly, Amethyst stepped out of her hiding spot, pushing past the arms of Jasper and the other Amethyst, trying to hold her back. She was now standing in full view of the window. All of these in my hand are nothing but pawns born to be used and sacrificed if necessary, Amber spoke as she tilted her head, spotting Amethyst on one of the viewing windows. Wow! You didn't tell me we had an audience, Quartz. Steven turned his head and saw Amethyst looking at Amber holding the two gems, but as he got distracted, turning back around, he was met with a massive hook going at lightning speed from Amber. He crashed hard into the station, breaking parts of it, but as the dust settled, Amber saw Steven standing in the dust with a shield drawn. You're not as fast as Jasper, he jokingly said, but Jasper, who was watching from the sidelines, could tell that he was hurt. She was about to walk out and Steven raised his hand slightly, signaling her to stay put. But Jasper mouthed something to him. Okay, but I will come out if it gets bad. He nodded his head, agreeing, and turned back to Amber, who was just standing there looking amused. Wow! I didn't destroy you? Most gems never survive my first hit, but I always hold back. When Steven heard this, his jokingly demeanor slightly dropped as Amber walked towards him. But don't worry, I won't shatter you. Since Oracle said you might be useful. Amber drew her weapon, a straight blade katana covered in electric bolts flickering all over it. Maybe I don't need all of you. Just your gem. When Jasper heard these words, she immediately pounced on Amber. Their weapons clashed. Jasper with Steven's sword against Amber's katana, but there was no sound as they were on the moon. Jasper pushed back Amber, giving Steven some space. Perfect timing. I don't think I could have taken that hit. She helped him up. Come on, Steven, I know you can do better than that. She patted his head, a bit embarrassed. I still need to get used to everything you taught me, and my gem has been acting weird. Jasper saw Steven's gem glowing dimly a couple of times before going back to normal. I have never seen a gem do that before. Oracle was still scanning around, trying to read more about Steven's power as Strix just stood there observing him closely. His power has been contained by something. No. Someone. Oracle spoke out, seemingly looking confused. But Strix was more intrigued by this revelation. Someone limited his power, huh? I wonder who it was? But Oracle was now sensing something way more powerful that had been hiding in plain sight this whole time. Strix, something is not right. Strix always took Oracle more seriously than Amber. So what is it, Oracle? Whilst Oracle had her eyes closed, everything around her suddenly became dark and she couldn't see anything, but everything was black. She started feeling a well of emotions with tears coming down her cheeks as a set of blue eyes appeared before her in the darkness. Meanwhile, back, in reality, Strix was standing there shocked to see Oracle crying and frozen with fear. Oracle, wake up, Oracle. Amber turned her attention around back to the panicking Strix, trying to wake up Oracle. Strix, what's going on? But as Strix turned back to answer, she noticed something stepping out of the shadows and lost her train of thought. Back in Oracle's mind, a loud voice spoke out, addressing her directly. Young one, you dare trample on my territory? She was shaking her head, trying to apologize. No, it wasn't me. I didn't come by choice. Please forgive. Please, I beg of you. Oracle gasped as she saw the figure step out of the shadows in her mind, and so did Strix as she saw Blue slowly stepping out of the base in her full form. Firstly, with one of her hands reaching out from the shadows, grabbing the sides of the base, pulling out the rest of her body into the light. To think that you weaklings dare to bother me. Oracle saw this in her head as the eyes glowed brighter and brighter with visions of gems shattering, some of wars, emotions, pain and sadness. It all overwhelmed her, till her form poofed and she retreated to her gem. Strix saw this and turned back to Amber. We have to go now, Amber. But Amber just turned around and saw the towering form standing next to Steven. Dia. She slowly stepped back, retreating to Strix as she was picking up Oracle's gem. With one last glance, Amber looked at Steven and along with Strix jumped up into the sky, where there were many giant loomingly dark figures shrouded in darkness. After a few minutes, they saw all of them disappear, and Blue scanned the area to make sure no one was hiding in the area. It's all clear, they are gone. Jasper helped Steven inside as Blue stood there looking at the sky. Looks like a storm is coming.